Hi there. When we're talking about different kinds of mathematical equations, there is no doubt that the quadratic equation is probably one of those most fascinating ones. Its standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c. Now, when you're working with that, you can work with it simply as just a basic equation. In fact, there are a couple of forms of the quadratic equation. One is the standard form, which we have right here, and the other is the vertex form. But right now, we're talking about the standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c. What's interesting about this is that it can be taken as simply an equation solving ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. You can solve it, and then you have your answer. There's also another way of looking at it, and that is by graphing it. And usually when you're graphing it, what you do is you go ahead and use this. F of x is equal to, f of x is a function of x. F of x is a function of x. And that means that it can be whatever that equation is going to be. So let's say the equation is going to be 2x squared plus 8x and say minus 10, and that's what you have. That's your equation, 2x squared plus 8x minus 10. Now you're starting off with that, and I say f of x because f of x is simply like using the variable y. All right, it's using the variable y. F of x can be interposed with y, and since oftentimes the more and more math you're working with, the higher level math is usually working with functions. Functions translate to f of x. So you have f of x like that. So f of x is equal to 2x squared plus 8x minus 10. Now, when you're doing that, you go ahead and we're going to change that a little bit. I'm going to move this up so we can work with this a little bit. We want to now graph this. You have 2x squared plus 8x minus 10. That will be the f of x of that equals that. So you have f of x is equal to this. Okay? That's what you have. F of x is equal to 2x squared plus 8x minus 10. Now, what do you do with this? Well, you want to graph it. That's the one thing we're going to do today is try to graph this. How do you do it? Well, the first step that you take is you want to find what's called the axis of symmetry, oftentimes referred to as AOS. The axis of symmetry, AOS, is going to be determined with the following formula. X is equal to negative b over 2a. Now, I will say this. I have heard some teachers call it the opposite of b, but I like to refer to it as negative b over 2a. Now, what are we referring to? And I probably should back up just a little bit. I need to back up a little bit, not get too far ahead of ourselves. Where do I come up with the x and the negative b and 2a? Well, first you have to understand that this ax, remember we had ax squared plus bx plus c? Well, it turns out that these numbers have a letter attached. This one has the letter variable a attached. This one has the letter b attached, and this has c attached. So this is what we refer to as a. This is what we refer to, excuse me, what we refer to as b, and what we refer to as c. So when we say negative b over 2a, what we're referring here, this is b right here, and that right there, 8 is b. So they're talking about negative 8 and over 2a. This is going to be a right here. This is a right here. That's going to be 2 times 2 is going to be, that's what a is 2, is going to be 4. So right there you have negative 8 over 4, which gives you negative 2. So your very first step, you're going to find that your axis of symmetry, which has been found by x equals negative b over 2a, is going to be -2. Now, what do I do with that? I find x. X is going to be right here. I put like 1, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's x there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's x over here. This is the negative side, the positive side. This is -2, which means that you have 1, 2, negative, and you go like this. This is the -2 right here on the x line, x axis, -2. What you do is you draw a dot line down here, dot, 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 all the way down here. I'm not doing a very good dot, 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 but it's a line down here. That's your axis of symmetry. That's your -2. All right? So you do that, and that's how you find your axis of symmetry. Now, you also want to find something else. You want to find what's called the vertex. How do you find the vertex? Well, and I don't want to get too confused here. You got the axis of symmetry right here. Your vertex will be on the same line. This is going to be what is going to be the down the middle of the graph. This axis of symmetry is -2, is right down the middle of whatever the graph we discover. Okay, so it's eventually going to be a parabola. So what you do is you got -2, it's right down the middle. Now the vertex point is going to be on the same line. This is the x, -2. The y is going to be somewhere. How do you find the y? -2 is going to be the vertex right here. You put -2 where x is, where f of x, you put -2 in here. -2 where the x is. -2 is going to be 4. -2 times -2 is 4. X squared is -2, 4. 4 times 2 is 8. So you have 8 is your first number there. And then you have, again, -2 right here. -2 times 8 is going to be -16. That's -16 right there. And then you're going to have -10. So you got 8 minus 16. That's going to be -8. And then you're going to have -10. And so you're going to find yourself with a -18. Wow. A -18 looks like. Wow. It's a pretty steep one. Okay. So you're going to go all the way down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 18. Down here. Let's put that down here. So you're going to find a really low one. So it's -18 down here and -2 here. There's your vertex right here. Now, it's interesting because in a parabola, you have either a maximum or a minimum vertex, right? Maximum or minimum. Now, what's that determined by? It's determined by the sign, or whether this number is negative or positive. If this number is negative or positive, it determines whether you have a maximum or minimum. Now, if it is a negative, it means that it's pointing down. And this would be called the very maximum because it's going all the way down, and that would be the very maximum point. But if it's a positive, like this is a positive right here, you're pointing up, positive, pointing up. That means this is going to go up. So even though it's way down there, -18, it's going to come all the way back up. So that's going to be a positive. That's going back up. So that's going to be what's called a minimum vertex, minimum, because that's the very bottom. That's the very minimum it's going to go up that way. All right. Now, when you're trying to find, you got to remember, this is right down about down here, -18. And this is a parabola. Now, what you're going to then want to find out is what are the points that will be making this a graph. Well, you can do it a couple different ways. One is, and probably one way you can do it, is by setting up, I use this term T-chart right here. T-chart right here, where you have -2 and -18. That's your bottom line here. That's -2 is going to be x, and -18 is going to be right there. And remember, that's x right there. And that's either going to be called y there, or it could be called f of x, because remember, that's like a y, or it's like y equals 2x squared, but it's f of x. So you could call that either f of x or y. This could be called f of x or y. And then you're going to try to find, what you can now do is find out what is going to be the number that's a negative 2. You want to get as close to this as possible, close to negative 2 as possible, because you got the axis of symmetry right here. This is right down the middle, right down the middle. You want to get as close to that as possible when you're trying to create your graph. So let's make it a negative 3 and a negative 4, right? Let's do that. What do? I put the negative 3 in here. I plug it in here. I have negative 3, and I go negative 3 squared is going to be 9, times 2 is 18. That's 18 there. And I go negative 3 is x right there, times 8 is negative 24, right? Negative 24. So you got 18 minus 24 is going to be negative 6, and negative 6 and negative 10 is going to be negative 16. So we got negative 16 right here. And 1, 2, it's a little bit higher. So right there, you're putting your negative 3 and negative 16, all right? So there you get your first set of points. Then you try negative 4. Negative 4 is your x. You put it in here, plug in right here. Negative 4 is going to be negative 4 squared, which is going to be 16. 16 times 2 is 32. 32 right there. And again, negative 4. And again, negative 4 times 8 is going to be a negative 32. So 32 minus 32 is going to be 0. It'll be minus 10. 32 minus 32 is going to be 0. Minus 10 is going to be negative 10. So you're suddenly coming up a little bit here. Get up to about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you're moving up here, right? Negative 4. Now, the best, if you want to do it this way, something called, you can translate. In other words, you now know what this is going to be. This is what it's going to be 2 and the negative. This is a negative 3 and negative 4. You know what these are going to be at negative 18, negative, negative 4 is going to be at negative 10 right there. You already know what those are going to be. So what you could do is just reflect, reflect. Reflect over here, and you can go ahead and bring it up by 2 right there, and bring it up by just a few more, 4 by here, 6 actually. And there you have it. There you have your graph of your parabola, okay? That's what you did right there, because you reflected. You reflected from what you had was negative 3 and negative 4, right here, negative 3 and negative 4, and you reflected the fact this is going to be negative 16 and negative 10, and you got that reflection gave you a shape of the graph that reflects what this is going to be. So there you have it. You have the graphing of this. And I know it gets a little challenging, but it's all about being able to plug in these numbers properly and getting them to match up in a reflection. All right, that's how you can be graphing a quadratic equation, and a lot depends on the numbers. Now, it seems like I have a habit of picking numbers that can get really out there, and I did it again. Sometimes, usually you get numbers that are a little bit closer. Usually you do. No guarantee, but usually you do. But these, I shouldn't say usually you do. It's most of the problems you get challenged on are like that. But this equation is just as much of an equation as anything else. So this may seem a little difficult. It is, but there are going to be difficult ones out there. And now you can see how you can resolve those. But this is an example of graphing an equation. That's a quadratic equation. And as you can see, by using the vertex, by finding the axis of symmetry first, and then finding the vertex, that will help you and me to go ahead and find the other coordinating points for the graph. All right? I hope that helps you out. Thanks for watching. It's great to see y'all.